So we take accurate notes. And that's the only purpose for recording. It helps. Okay. So just to be respectful and mindful that everyone's probably had a long day and it's 5:30 and there could be hunger. Perhaps I'm projecting, but I think we should start. Patty, please.
Okay, well, I am Patty Fink. I'm the executive director here at CAT. This is our first Citizens Advisory Committee meeting, and we are hopeful that you can help guide the Transit Master Plan, in particular the community outreach piece of it, but also give us advice on different service options and other things that or other considerations in the existing condition report that that we have forgotten or need to include that we didn't. So we are I'm going to launch right into it and toss it back to Chris Wachi, who is with, she is our public engagement professional. She is with Cogito consulting firm out of Eugene. Chris, you want to take it away?
Hi, hello everyone. Very nice to meet your little facial boxes here. My name is Chris Wachi. I have a very small public engagement firm here in Eugene, and we work on transportation, land use, and economic development, and how you engage the public in meaningful conversations about that. And pretty much every public process has those three elements in it. So particularly the transportation master plan. So we'll be talking a little bit about that as we go through the public engagement strategies. And I'm not going to steal my thunder. We have a lot of questions for you, but I'm very excited. This is the first of 4 citizen advisory committees. And what would be really helpful right now is just to do a quick round of introductions. If you could say your name, your primary affiliation, or whom you're representing tonight, as well as what your relationship is with CAT or how you interact with CAT. So not just a few sentences, if you will, because we have quite a lot to cover. And if you don't mind, I'm going to just call on folks because it's easier that way. So Beth, would you mind starting us off?
Sure. My name's Beth Hartwell. I live here in Hood River. Affiliation, I retired about almost 3 years ago, but didn't know how to retire till this year. I had brain surgery in May, so I'm almost a year through, and that changed my ability to drive and get around. And I had used CAT in the past, getting to work in Odell a couple times and whatnot, but I became very reliant for some freedom in my life by taking CAT. I went several times into Portland, to Gateway, a dozen times probably, and I could still walk to do errands, but it was nice to walk downtown and catch the bus back up the hill. And so I think I really want more riders. I really want more riders.
Wonderful. Thank you. Lovely to meet you. Junior.
Yes, I've been doing CAT for as long as I can remember. I just, like to ride the bus because it's so fulfilling. I'm in Hood River and I love to ride the bus, and I would like to tell everybody how to ride the bus, and it's just great for me riding it.
Wonderful.
I get enjoy in riding it every Tuesday to the Dells and around.
Wonderful. And you're coming to us live from CAT.
Yes.
And you're sitting next to Tia. And since we have you in the same visual box, Tia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Tia. I am the bookkeeper and administrative assistant here at CAT. I am new to the CAT team, and I'm really excited to be a part of this transit master plan and see what changes can come from it.
Excellent. Thank you. Laura and Ivy.
I'm Laura Dunn. I serve as the chair of the CAT board, and my family likes to ride the bus to Gateway. We've been able to do that to get to the airport a number of times, and we're really grateful for that service. And as a board member, I'm really proud and excited about how we've been able to expand fixed routes in town and just have more like buses going more often and more places around town. But like all of you, I'd really like to see more riders, and I'm excited to put some improvements in place that will help us grow our ridership. And I persuaded my daughter Ivy to join the group too.
Yeah, I'm Ivy. I'm a Hood River Valley High School student. I've ridden the bus home from school a couple times. And then all the things she said, yeah.
That's great. Ivy, I'm very excited you're here because we've been having conversations with Hood River High School about doing outreach through the high school. So I'm delighted that you're here. Teresa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa, and my affiliation is I'm actually a former board member of CAT. I did it for, I think, a couple of years, if I remember correctly. And then currently right now I'm working at Diamond Fruit Growers. So I'm kind of driving out there and, seeing the need for transportation. I also own a business up in the Heights, a restaurant business. So I also see the different aspects of transportation that way.
Wonderful. And you're, I think, somewhere in Canada. I'm not sure.
Yes, I'd like to think so.
That's wonderful, Teresa. I'm so excited about the different perspectives here. Jody. Oops, Jody, you're on mute.
Thank you. Okay. I'm Jody Bear, and I've lived here in Hood River since 1994. And I am a civil engineer, and I've been involved in design and construction of light rail projects since I moved to Oregon in 1994. So I'm a transit person, not only involved in, making projects happen, but I love transit. So whenever I get a chance, I'm either walking or I'm riding transit, and my last form of transportation is the car.
And you live here in Hood River, right?
I do. I'm up on the Heights, and yeah, Patty. And I've been involved in the community here extensively for a really long time, trying to get changes to happen. So this is a huge passion for me. So I love to hear, and I'm really enjoying listening to everyone else and their perspectives and why they're involved in this, because I think this is the future. And everyone doesn't think like I do yet. And so I think part of our biggest thing is to change that, shift that perspective by getting more users. So thank you for putting this together.
Hi, that's great, Jody. And also just your, you understand connectivity and options and first and last mile. So that is very exciting. Taylor.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I live up in Parkdale right now, and I'm currently a grad student at Portland State, getting my master's in social work. So it's kind of like big systems planning gets me really excited and inspired. And I primarily have taken CAT up to the mountain and occasionally when I lived in the Dalles to Hood River, but it's been pretty limited. And I'm excited about this because I have a dream of when I do work in Hood River or the Dalles that I would not have to drive and I could actually take the bus. So I'm very excited about this project.
Excellent. Thank you. White Buffalo.
Let's see. I'm unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is White Buffalo Kafwanase, and I used to have a small business downtown in Hood River. And I took the bus up to the Heights quite a bit, down from downtown to like Walmart or Safeway. I've taken it up from the waterfront. I take the Mount Adams Transit across the bridge to Bingen. I'm passionate about lowering the number of DUIs in Hood River. And I'm wondering if the bus system could have like somehow support a way to get our tourists and our residents home safely from going to the bar because of the wineries and breweries. And I know we have a lot more DUIs in Hood River than other places. And so I think it's really, really important that we use everything we can to prevent anybody from drinking and driving. People die and it ruins people's lives. So I just hope, and I like all the drivers. I've had good experiences with all the drivers, and so I just hope that we can get more routes, and like they also with all the pollution that cars and things that impact on our environment, having the public transportation can really help there too. So I'm appreciative of the environmental impact that more people using the bus could make. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wendy Lynn Kelly. I use she, her pronouns, and I actually work in Multnomah County, actually for Multnomah County. And when the pandemic started, I actually shifted and moved all the way out to Hood River. I don't own a car. I didn't have one when I was in Portland, so I use TriMet all the time. So having the cat, I use the cat to go back and forth to work during the pandemic about once a week. And now I use it about twice a week to go into Portland. And I hope to use it more locally now that things are starting to open up again. So this is such a great opportunity. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And I'm so happy to see that Amy's here, and hopefully we can have just a quick little baby view. Amy, are you available? Oh, hopefully baby's
Hello,
happy.
everybody. Hi, this is baby Zadie. For all of you who don't know, I'm the incoming executive director, Amy Schlappe. I am on maternity leave, but I wanted to sign into the meeting and thank all of you for participating, as I really appreciate it, and just so excited to hear all the feedback, and I'm excited to see the plan that we create based on all that feedback as well. So I just want to say thank you, and I wanted to sign in and here. I might not be able to be here for the entire meeting, depending on what Miss Zadie decides to do, but just wanted to say hi.
Wonderful. And thank you for the baby fix. I needed that. Great.
Anytime.
So I get to work with a lot of citizen advisory committees, and I have to say, I am so excited to work with you folks because of just the background, the interests, the different perspectives. This is going to be a great process. So with that, let's launch into just a couple slides on to do a brief overview on the CAT. Whoops, and we'll go back. That's right. Just the overview. We're going to provide a high-level overview of it. Some of the timing, Patty's going to talk a little bit about existing conditions, and then we're going to get into a more in-depth conversation about the public engagement plan and hear your thoughts about how do we make it, enrich it. One thing I didn't mention about CAT is I actually have worked with CAT for years before, when it was a dial-a-ride system, way back when Linda Floyd was the general manager, and then Dan Schwantz came in, and then Patty. So I have this connection to CAT, and just seeing how much it's changed really over the past, well, since Patty came on board, and a little bit prior to that. So it's really exciting. So 2017 was the very first transit master plan, and that really set the course for the growth of CAT. And there are a lot of key areas there that were created, and Patty can go a little more into detail in a moment about that. But the purpose of this plan is really to strengthen those. As folks have mentioned, it is a community-oriented transit system. And one of the impressive things about working on this was CAT's very clear direction that you engage and you empower and you strengthen the voice of people who use it, because it is your system and you are the primary driver of the whole system. As I was talking earlier, looking at the land use, the economic development, and what are the local partnerships for CAT, and that's for really reaching and strengthening the connections to not only to the community, but with CAT, and how CAT has sustainability and throughout this area in terms of funding and other relationships. And then gaps and opportunities through regional coordination. And some gaps have already been mentioned just in our intro. So that's exactly what the TMP will also look at. What are the gaps and what are the opportunities for CAT to address that? May I go to the next? So the approach, put passengers first, reach out and listen to the community, those partnership opportunities. There's a lot happening in the Gorge in terms of planning and transportation planning. So how do you support that regional integration? And really look at, a lot of times planning processes have those long-term goals, and CAT's looking at what are those short-term improvements that we can start moving on immediately and have those focused results. And I do want to say, if there are questions, please, I don't think you need to raise your hands, just chime in if you do have questions as I'm moving through this. The overarching approach really are looking at 5 focus areas: Cascade Locks, Hood River West, Hood River East, Odell and Lower Highway 35, and then the Upper Valley and Highway 35. And those are based on census block data. And you'll see that if you've looked at the existing conditions report, that's how we're really looking not only at what's happening within those census blocks, but also some of the outreach that is targeted, tailored, and is not a template that's put down because it's different for each of the areas, what works best and how do you reach people in a way that serves them well and is the best way to get feedback. But then as Wendy noted, she travels into Portland. So there are regional and connections, the I-84 corridor, not only going to the Dells, but also connecting to Portland and then to other Gorge communities. So you'll see that as Patty talks about the existing conditions as well. And I just want to say, I guarantee I'm not going to be talking this much at every CAT meeting. This is just the overview. High level timeline of where we are. I'll talk specifically about these elements in a moment. But really, we're now from autumn until early part of winter of 2023 and spring for adoption. So we have an ample and generous amount of time to really do this project well with a lot of depth. And that's exciting. Sometimes they're rushed, and that makes, with this kind of timeline, for a very sustainable outcome. Patty, can you go to the next one? And we will come back to this in a moment. These are the high levels, just I wanted to touch base on. We started this off with stakeholder interviews. So we had a series of interviews with representatives from the community to look at the public engagement plan, tell us, how do we get the message out? What's the best way to reach people for whom you work with or work for? And it's been really interesting. So school districts, One Community Health, Nextdoor, Hood River, City of Hood River, and quite a few more. So we feel like we've got a good depth, and we've got a lot of opportunities to work to get the word out and get input. So we're just right now at the beginning of that period of time for community outreach. So presentations, events, community meetings. We were at the Columbia Gorge Health Council just last week or the week before. And you may have seen that we're doing a big survey now, which is really understanding the issues and opportunities for CAT, issues, opportunities, barriers. And so we're going to ask you to help us promote that. And I'll talk later much more about that, but you may have seen the big purple cat around with the, I don't know how pithy or funny it is, but if anyone has a cat, my cat doesn't listen to me, but your cat does. And so that's, I don't know, Patty, if you really loved how much we loved that saying, but we've used it a lot. So I mentioned the community survey, and again, I'll talk a little bit more about that. And there are project advisories. There is a technical advisory committee that just had their first meeting. And of course, the committee, community advisory committee. So we've kind of tag teamed these so that when it comes time for the CAT board to adopt, that they have advising recommendations, not only coming from the technical advisory committee, but also from this committee to move forward and potentially adopt the plan. On the next one, please. So I just want to touch base on what was outlined in the application that you filled out, which was the role of the advisory committee. Again, helping with the development of the TMP, helping us with the public engagement and outreach strategies, reviewing and monitoring public input. And this is a pretty critical point. We're going to come back to you in spring and show, it's like a barometer reading of how well we're doing. And we'll show whom we've heard from and whom we haven't, so we can pivot and adjust and make sure that we're reaching all the communities in Hood River County, and then also for the regional connections, what's the best way of doing that. So that'll be in springtime that you'll have an evaluation of what we've done, where we've gone. And then as we move into summertime, these next two bullets, you'll see there's a July meeting, and you'll review some of the draft deliverables that are coming out of the planning process. And then also in that context, understand or consider what the technical advisory committee and CAT's other committees have weighed in on. And then finally, making a formal adoption recommendation to the CAT board. And again, that'll be, I believe, in October. Yes, that's in October. So in fall. May I go to the next one? So I think it's always helpful to just touch on agreements coming together as this mini community of advisors of just planning on attending all meetings. Because you only have 4, there's a lot of information that's going to be imparted to you, as well as requested from you. So ask that people come very well prepared, and to really share, help us, as I've been, sorry, I'm repeating myself a little bit, but really help us get the TMP information out to the broader community and networks. Whether it's really interesting if you've ever done a network map of how connected people are and it's not the 6 degrees of separation. It's amazing how many tendrils or connections or streams we have, whether it's your neighborhood, whether it's a religious institution, school, grocery store. I'm always very impressed. And there are 2 things that we just request. One is not to speak on behalf of the CAT unless you're requested to do so as part of the formal TMP proceedings, such as a public hearing or speaking, introducing project team members for a presentation. And then because you're going to be seeing a lot of draft materials, they're not really ready for prime time. They're intended to be worked on, and the committee is part of that advising. So you're asked not to release or share draft materials until Patty or Amy says it's fine, it's ready for general public review. Please help us spread the word. So I'm going to pause here just for a second. Any questions or comments, concerns about anything that I've gone over at this point?
Chris, I have a comment about the timeline for the survey. And it looks like it's going to be done, like no longer accessible in another month or so. Is that true?
No, it goes until, actually, Patty, could you, I think I've got the timeline later on, but you want to scroll back up?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so it does look, it goes through the end of spring, which technically, you're right, is March 21st, if I'm right.
No, that's the beginning of spring. So that'd be.
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
So so pretty much we hope to continue outreach until June, mid-June or so. So
Thanks, Patty.
and Jody, just so you are aware, we have our goal is to get 10% of the population within Hood River County to respond. And so it's an ambitious goal. And then in addition to that, it's to have those 10% reflect the entire community. So we have 31% of our population that is Hispanic, and we would like to get 31% of that community responding. So as Chris said, we hope in April to review what response we have gotten, and if we are lacking in elderly or youth, Ivy, we may call upon you guys to give us some additional ideas about where we can go and collect more surveys so that we can really get a full picture of what the youth want, what the elderly want, what the Hispanic community wants, what the folks in Odell want, what the folks in Parkdale want, and Hood River East and West. So we're really, and also then Portland as well, so that we can get a sort of a great sense of what kind of services we should be providing.
Yeah, that's just my concern, is it might be a little short on the time frame to get all that we really need, which you just spoke very well about, Patty. So that's just one thing to express. Yeah.
And I did, if you notice on this time frame, this first period is really the community survey, and then the second summer, if you look at the line above, summer through winter, there will be more input opportunities on some of the deliverables. So like the draft land use, some of the service proposed, routes proposed, there'll still be an opportunity. So it's not, I just want to emphasize the survey is not the only opportunity for input. And I will get my seasons down before I see you next. Okay, Patty, any other questions? Okay, I think you can go to the next one. All right.
Okay, I'm just, we really want to give time for you guys to react, but I did want to just kind of give you a brief overview of the existing conditions report. Jody emailed me early on and said, wow, the thing is 60 plus 68 pages long. What should I focus on? And so I'm just going to give a brief overview of the entire thing, and then we're going to ask you if there are things that that we might have missed that you'd really like us to include in the existing conditions that we didn't do a good job at. So I wanted to start with sort of an overview of our past to present. 6 years ago, the board began the process of doing their 2017 planning process. At that point, CAT was largely a dial ride service. And there was a strong perception in the community that transit was for the elderly and disabled. It really wasn't for everybody. It was really for those people who didn't have a car and couldn't get around any other way. There was, in the region, there was long-standing provider coordination, but no integrated planning. So there was a lot of ideas that we should coordinate and do our best, but we weren't really planning for that. Since the 2017 Transit Master Plan was adopted, and the focus was on serving a broader population base, and that included enhancing, going from dial ride service to fixed route service. Ensuring sustainability through relevancy and consistency of the transit system, that sort of a network of services. So making sure that that services were relevant to the communities that we were serving. And we've chosen this year to focus more on that and integrate transit more into the communities that are throughout the county. So not just Hood River, but also Cascade Locks or Odell or Parkdale. What are the things that you love about your community, and how can transit better help you to make those things work? And then the other big focus for the 2017 Transit Master Plan was service and system equity and enhancing local and regional access. And for those of you who have been around the service, you will have seen us. We enhanced and improved service and made it more efficient in the Odell and Parkdale areas, though it still is somewhat limited. We've had more consistent service in the Cascade Locks area, and certainly enhanced fixed route service within the city of Hood River as well. So we're focused on ensuring that we're serving, ensuring that each community has equity and can access transit services, and but recognizing that there's more to be done, not only in providing more services, but also engaging more communities to be riding the bus. As part of that network building, we also have been doing quite a bit of networking with other providers. As you see on the left, you can see a lot of the services in the gorge are new. Goldendale white salmon services, most of the Skamania County services are all new services, things that hadn't been provided in the past. The Columbia Gorge Express, the Gorge to Mountain, those are also all new services that we've tried to engage. And you'll also see that that is the same in Upper Valley and Cascade Locks. We now have permanent stops and permanent places where you can get on and off. One of the advantages of doing enhancing services has been that we've been able to slowly but surely increase the number of riders that we've been serving. So we started just over about 27,000 riders in the fiscal year 2016 to 2017. And right before the pandemic hit, we had the pandemic not hit in March of 2020, we likely would have been over 80,000 riders. We were on target to meet that. Of course, when the pandemic hit, we saw ridership bottom out, as so many other businesses and people did. Our service revenue service hours, meaning the number of service hours out on the street, has also increased. I saw a slight decrease in 2020 due to the pandemic, but otherwise we've again seen a significant increase in revenue service hours. And the result of that has also been that because we've increased revenue hours, but also increased ridership. We've seen what is an efficiency factor. We've seen that enhanced, and our goal when we started services was within 5 years to reach a passenger per revenue hour of 6, and we almost accomplished that. Again, part of the reason was because of the pandemic, and so we think that we've been on the right track, but we are, you know, looking, particularly with gas prices and other things, to sort of engage more folks and get them sort of riding, thinking about transit service and thinking about what their needs are, how they can use it more effectively, how they can use it with other modes, etc. So some of the things that we identified were the areas of development, and this is maybe a more planning related thing, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time, but within the Hood River County, there are specific areas of for instance, in the city of Hood River or the city of Cascade Locks that are really a focus for new development. You probably have heard about in the Hood River about the West Side area. That's an area that's growing in terms of the city wants to see a more housing opportunities in that area and whatnot. Same is true for Cascade Locks outside of Mooney. They have a big housing project, but they also have some industrial areas that they want to develop. So those are areas where transit can play a role, both in ensuring access and making housing more affordable and making allowing folks to have mobility and access to work sites. So that is one of the issues or opportunities that we see and will be a focus of the plan. Changing demographics. What we're seeing is that is slowly, not quite as in pace with other areas of Oregon, but slowly we are aging as a population, and we are getting a little more diverse. So we are seeing diversity and aging in the Hood River population. Those two are important, particularly as I mentioned, the Hispanic community, and making sure that we are connecting both in terms of language and otherwise with those communities, so that people feel safe in writing and feel welcome in writing. And the same is true with elderly. The elderly, some elderly need more specialized services, and that we can't forget the dial ride services that we provide. Those also are a critically important part of the population. And I think we heard that from Beth. The other thing that we have identified is parking management and the availability of supportive transportation options. We've both, all over the gorge, we're talking about parking and how parking is difficult in downtown Hood River, how trailhead parking is overcrowded, how you know, trying to get to our favorite restaurant, we can't get there. So throughout the gorge, and every place in the gorge is starting to talk about parking management, and that is beginning to be an overall mantra for the gorge. How do we encourage and there's a lot of good things that tourists bring to the community, but how do we make sure that we can sustainably have them here in a way, and parking management is one of them. And then the availability of supportive transportation options. That might be something like ride hailing, which is sort of known more vernacularly as Lyft or Uber, but doesn't necessarily have to be provided by a large corporate provider. Or car sharing, which there's an electric car sharing here in Hood River. Is there a potential to do that? Other places, bike share is another exciting thing that Ivy and her set may be interested in. So there's a variety of other transit supportive options. Also for tourists, one of the things that we've thrown around is you know, there's these eco camping pods where you can order a tent and all the outdoor camping facilities, and they drop it right at your campsite, and all you have to do is take the bus, and then all that is there and available for you. So those are some of the things that can allow folks to come into the gorge, enjoy the gorge without having to bring a car. Balancing needs, I think that is a critical thing and one staff is struggling with. How much do we focus on tourism and visitors where we're likely to get huge ridership increases because there's so many coming in, over 2.5 million in the gorge last year? And how do we balance the transit dependent, so those folks that really need the services versus those people who are what we call choice riders, who may have a car but choose to use public transit because it maybe is a little less expensive, or they like to do it for environmental concerns or other things. So how do we both engage all those and meet those needs, and sort of how do we spend the first buck? And those are all sort of key transit related things. And then the other thing that I think is an ongoing important thing for the community is how do we how much of the service do we put on local corridors, which allows more folks to have access more and really focus on making sure that there are sidewalks and other things that allow folks from the neighborhoods to get there, and how much do we focus on going into the neighborhoods themselves and going into specific streets or patterns to get because you know there just aren't sidewalks that allow for that. So I think that's another area, is like how do we best serve the communities that we're serving in? And then the last piece is how do we ensure regional coordination and scheduling? How do we coordinate with our neighbors? Like I think White Buffalo Calf mentioned Matt's transit service, or service to the Dalles. I think the TriMet services. So there's quite a few there up at Clackamas County services up in Government Camp. So there are quite a few services that we can coordinate with and can allow enhanced and regional access. So those are the issues and opportunities that we identified. And I guess one of the things that we wanted to ask you is, first of all, are we missing anything in those things that we sort of highlighted in the existing conditions report, things that you think about the community that might be important? And are there issues and opportunities that you see for transit in the community, and how would you frame those ideas? And do you have any questions? Beth, I'm going to start with you. What do you think about that list? As a writer, do you think there are things that I forgot that are important to you that we need to address?
Let me get here. I think it's really well covered. And there were some things like you were talking about ridership and tourism. And there was one time I wasn't sure I was going to get on the bus home from to Hood River from Gateway because of the long line to Multnomah Falls. So I can understand what you're saying about that and how that balances. But right, yeah, it all made sense. I can see, it feels like you've got a lot covered, more than I could probably imagine. And I'm looking forward to just kind of expanding my view of this in a sense of how it all comes together. So thank you very much.
Yeah. White Buffalo Calf, what about you? You had talked about maybe some of the tourist related issues around driving. You want to expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, well, perhaps it could be like getting people from like the places where there's drinking activity going on up to the heights, or but it would have to be a later service because a lot of that type of thing happens in the evening. Then another thing I thought of was like an app where, have you ever used Uber
Yeah, you might want to. You might want to turn
or
off the
Lyft?
video. You're coming in a little bit slow.
Any of you? Well, when you log into this app where me?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. Well, when you log into order an Uber, there's like a little map and there's all these little cars that are driving around you. And it could be the same thing with the buses. And so people could just hop on there and see where all the buses are. And we could use like a similar technology to make the transportation really easy for people to find and know how long it's going to take or where the stops are. So it's just because like teens, I could be able to figure that out easily. The elders would have a harder time with that and probably wouldn't use it. But if you could enhance the technology to make using the bus cooler and show people how it can be a convenience to them rather than driving and paying to park and all this stuff. They just get on the bus and then you're there quick and it's easy and you already paid that low rate of $40 or
Right.
whatever. So we got to show them how easy and how much it makes their life more convenient.
Right.
First,
You know, oops. Go ahead.
that was all.
Oh, I just wanted to echo at One Community Health, we also heard the need for some type of after hours service to really address some of the populations and folks in the Dalles who are driving between the Dalles and Hood River, specifically some of the Gorge students or Columbia Gorge Community College students. Patty, I think Joy, you had something.
Sorry, I can't see it, everybody. So yeah, that's good.
Well, actually, excuse me, before we go there, Laura had a question about when the 2021 data would be available. Was that specifically about ridership?
Yeah, the graphs that showed ridership and service hours went through 2020.
Oh, part of the reason that we did that is because it just plummets because of COVID. So I could have added that 20. We do have the data. It just what it shows is it's a downward trend and it's an anomaly in our service. What you see after 2021 is service increasing, and I believe not only because COVID is sort of waning at this point, but also because of the higher gas prices that we will be almost back at 2020 levels by the end of 2023.
And Jody, did you have something you wanted to say? I saw that you had unmuted yourself and.
Yeah. So Patty, I actually read the whole thing.
Good for you.
And well, part of it is because I'm somewhat used to reading these documents, but I'll also say it was easy to read. So you guys did a really good job. And as I was reading through it, I put my thoughts down as I was going. But the one thing and I can maybe share those with you instead, I can't go through all of them here, but the balancing of needs that you talked about between what I'll call the upper middle class choice riders and the people that depend on transit for transportation. To me, it's a 50-50. To me, we need both the choice riders choosing transit because I would say because we take away the stigma that transit carries, and through education and experience actually riding and I'm writing thoughts down of how we promote CAT. And the words that I was writing down, and this is part of my thing, is inconvenience is actually cool. Is the new cool, or is the post-COVID cool? And when you start riding transit and you realize that you can relax on your way to and from work, you can read a book, you can visit with other people who are not like you. You know what I mean? They're not your typical people you hang out with because you're all just together on a bus. And it's about connection and with people, which I think after COVID, most of us realize we need connection. And it's interesting, blah, blah, blah. So that's the sell for that's the quote sell or market for the choice riders. And then for me, the transit dependent people are the people that we really need to get feedback from. Like, how do we modify the system to get more people who need the system on it? And when I looked at your, the price to ride, the prices are so affordable that I just don't think that the prices are the thing keeping people from riding. And you guys have also seemed to have done a really great job of getting free rides out to a lot of people that need them. So I think it's more hearing from the people that need the system. So I think part of our big job as the CAC is how do we get out and how do we get feedback from the 33% Hispanic population and from the rest of the, I'll just call it minority transit, transportation people. And I wrote down some different ideas, but I think sort of promotional events that we have or that are targeted at the Hispanic community. A couple of years ago when we were planning Streets Alive, I happened to find out that there was a big Latino concert going on in Jackson Park. And a few of us showed up there to tell them about Streets Alive. And there was a young woman who had basically put that event together. I have to re-find her, but some of these young, super motivated individuals in the Hispanic community, those are the ones we need to connect with because they'll connect us with the Hispanic community.
That's great, Jody. And we're going to dive into that in just
Okay,
a little bit more. So I'm so glad you're thinking about that. And just following up for Patty, I was curious, Taylor, also you mentioned you've used it to go up to the mountain. Are there other issues and opportunities here that you see?
Yeah, I was thinking about what barriers why don't I use it more? Like what's holding me back kind of as you're describing that. And I think living in Parkdale, looking at the schedule, it's very limited to if I go to town, I don't know that I can get back. And so maybe more in the evening times, but also a lot of times I'm going out, I'm taking my bike or I'm taking my dog. And I feel like that's a barrier to not being able to you want to go out for a hike. You're, just you don't want to bring everything or you can't, because I don't think we're allowed to bring animals on the bus. But that's been a hesitation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm just going to say I bring my dog every day on the bus.
Oh, really?
I put him in a IKEA a blue sack, yeah, and so he rides with me. He's a corgi, and he's kind of heavy, but he's the office dog, so he runs around the office quite a bit. But yeah, no, you can bring a dog. You can. The board has actually loosened the requirements for a dog. You can now bring them with a muzzle, and don't need to have them in a carrier. The big issue for us is just liability. So we need to make sure that we won't have a dog biting somebody while they're on the bus. That's the big issue for us. In terms of bikes, and I was gonna actually say this to comment that Jody made too. In terms of the choice riders, I think we're getting a lot of surveys back like, oh, you don't have service in the evening, or you don't have service, you know, at this point, or bikes aren't allowed on buses, and I think that we've done a poor job of actually getting information out on what, and it's hard in Hood River, how to get information out into people's hands when they need it. But bikes are allowed on the buses, and actually the bike, Columbia Gorge Express currently has 9 available bike spaces, 3 on the front and 6 on the back. So we know that bikes in particular are really important, and I appreciate the comment, because we are finding that to be the case as well. There are a lot of people that want to bring their bike.
Yeah.
And I'll mention on that, I've seen they get loaded so fast, it's not a holdup. That people might think, oh, if I take my bike, it might take a while, but they just go on and off. I see people taking them into Portland quite often.
Teresa, do you want to weigh in about any issues or opportunities?
I do, thank you.
Yeah.
So one thing that I wanted to say is that I think it's the whole plan that you guys have right now with all the information that we received. I think it's very well thought out. I think we touch based on a lot of the things. One of the things that I would like to make sure that we keep going forward is in anything that we do, that it's more intuitive and more user friendly for everyone in general to be able to use. Somebody mentioned about an app, and it's like, those are great things, but let's remember to kind of make it as user friendly and simple as possible, because for people that when they want to use it, they're going to be like, well, if it's easy for me to use it, I'm going to use it. But once they hit a point where it's like, oh, that was kind of hard, I don't want to do it again. So like things like that we should consider.
Thank you. Junior, we haven't heard from you. Anything that you would add to the issues and opportunities?
I just want to say that I love riding the bus because it's so neat, and everybody and the drivers are really friendly and super. I like that form of riding. I've been riding for about 20 years, and I really love catching the bus. Because that's a great thing. Everybody, I have a car, and I stopped driving because I can catch the bus, and it's really nice, and they have it's a great opportunity for me, because I have to ride by myself. I can talk to other people.
Right. That's what Jody was saying.
I was working in the Cherries, and I just gathered a lot of people, and drivers are really friendly. I became friends to the drivers because I know that they were there, know them by first names, and it's a nice thing.
Right. It's that I think, Patty, you've always talked about how transit has an opportunity to build community, and
it's a great equalizer. everybody in the bus is the same. So I think that's and the more we can make sure that people know that they're welcome, you know, no matter who they are, where they're coming from, they're always welcome on the bus.
So can we hear from Ivy? Ivy, from your perspective, looking at the issues and opportunities here, what do you think from a high school student?
Yeah. So I haven't ridden the bus too much, but an example of one time I was going to was last summer. I was going to go to the fair with my friends, and we had been planning to take the bus. We took it once a couple years ago and it worked really well. But there were so many different schedules. It was really hard to figure out when it was going to leave and where we could catch it and where it would drop us off. And we ended up just getting a ride from one of our parents because it just was kind of overwhelming. And I think an app would be really helpful. And I think ease of finding schedules and routes would be really beneficial.
Yeah, that seems to be a pretty big theme that we're hearing tonight, and that you brought up White Buffalo Calf. Wendy, we haven't heard from you.
Yeah, thanks. I looked at the plan also, and I thought it was really well written and covered almost everything I'd be interested in. And one thing I just want to amplify from the plan is that I'm excited about the expansion to West Hood River, where I live. And one thing that the plan did also mention that I might be a little bit of a barrier for me is the fact that, like, the lack of sidewalks for a lot of parts of Hood River, lack of lighting in some other parts of Hood River also, and some street lights just don't exist. So one time leaving the CAT, I was trying to walk home and it was just really hard to cross Cascade, as you guys all know. It's those are like little like stressful barriers to heading for the CAT, but you guys highlighted that all in the report. It's an excellent report. Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. I just so you know, the biggest thing we've been lobbying for from the city, and we hope will be in place next year, is the intersection, the light interchange at Rand and Cascade. So you'll be able to actually cross at a red stoplight. So that we think will not only help us to get around Hood River, but is one of the things that we think is going to help facilitate for service to the west side.
And I just want to highlight too that that's one of the questions in the current survey is what are the barriers, and safe access to transit stops and some of the infrastructure around it. We're trying to identify that will be forwarded on to city planners. And you know, I think the only person is Laura. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think the things I would have said have been covered.
Great, okay. Any other questions before we move on to talking about public engagement and hearing, Jody, I really want to hear your ideas. And I just wanted to highlight a few things that we're doing. Okay, I think we can move on.
So you guys, as we were talking, I came up with a new idea. And it's for if the transit routes, the bus routes are on our collector roads, I'll call them, and not in the on the little local roads. Could we, this is a question, could we have designated sort of walking routes in the heights on the local roads? And I'll just say, like, is it A and C streets that are our transit corridors instead of Taylor and B kind of thing, so that we could, because we're not going to have sidewalks all of a sudden all over the city. But if we have streets that are the streets that we walk on to the transit routes, then we're encouraging the cars to be on the other streets. That concept, it's just an idea.
Mm-hmm. Patty, do you have any response to that?
Yeah, dealing with a dog issue. I apologize. The darn problem with Zoom and being at home. I live in White Salmon, not in Hood River, and there was just an expert, Jeff Speck, on walkability, who came and we listened to him talk. And I'm hoping I remember, they're called auxiliary lanes. They're often used in rural areas where the road width is actually narrowed. And it's narrowed by white lines on the side, and the white lines are intended specifically for bikes and ped. And it is an inexpensive way to enhance pedestrian access by narrowing the roadway so that the cars have to drive slower. So it's a little like having a whole bunch of parked cars on a street in a residential area where you have to drive slower, and sometimes you have to get over to get around them. Sort of, it was very common in the neighborhoods in Portland where you lived, where the streets were parked on both sides, and neighbors would often have to get into a space to allow the car coming from the other direction to pass. And it slows everybody down, and it creates a more usable thing. So that is something that we can talk about in the plan, that maybe in lieu of actually building new sidewalks, which can be very, very expensive, providing maybe some other types of street calming and other types of measures that can allow folks to feel safer walking in their street, along their streets.
So Patty, that's something like when we get to July, when people are going to see the land use, some of the recommendations around routes and options there.
That's right. We actually are, as part of the plan, going to actually have a some guidelines for developers and cities in terms of how to integrate transit better into the development process, and then also what type of actions the city can take to help enhance those access. And in Hood River, that also might be really highlighting the trail system here, because you do have some really nice trail systems throughout the neighborhoods as well.
So speaking of enhance, I want to make sure that we have enough time to talk about and hear some additional ideas about public engagement. And would you mind going to the next slide?
Oh, not at all.
Thank you. Okay, so this, what I wanted to do is talk a little bit about where we are right now and hear your ideas on how to get the word out. So where we are in winter. We have not hit spring yet. The survey launched, it was a pretty quiet launch because we were just starting initially about 2 weeks ago. We have, and this is available for anybody who wants it, whether you want it electronically or you want it, you want hard copies, but we do have, we're calling them bookmarks that talk about the survey. It has a QR code so you can scan. They're bilingual. We have display boards out throughout the community. And I wanted to highlight that Sarah Crooked at MCED is Kat's travel trainer, and she has been putting up bilingual displays in grocery stores and in particular high volume areas for people to see. We have bookmarks at all the libraries, as well as displays. We will be dispersing them around town. They're at the community college as well as the Dalles and in Hood River. In addition to that, we are, oops, I think someone's not on mute. It's, well, I'm not, but I'm fairly quiet here. We do have, to reach non-computer households, we have a bilingual hard copy survey, and we're partnering with One Community Health, and we're reaching out to the next door to assist us in getting out to community members, especially up Valley, to some of the communities who are farm workers, and also for other folks in Cascade Locks and around. So we've got a pretty good network, but I know we're not getting, as I said earlier, I'm sure there are additional ideas. One last thing I just wanted to say is that Sarah is at the Wasco County Health Fair coming up, and she's also working on surveys through the One Community Health vaccine van. So she'll be working with them and doing outreach that way. Because we're moving out of, because we're expecting more community events, to your point, Jody, CAT will be at large events with iPads, and also intercept surveys for folks on the bus just to come in and ask, and may I ask you a few questions? So I'll pause here right now. I'm just very interested in, for survey outreach, what are some additional ideas? What are some additional networks that you suggest that we really should reach from your perspective? I'm going to ask for skiers. We could definitely reach before the snow is all gone, and try to get the mountain folks there. So it might be, I know you just said you went skiing, but I may ask if you can help us on that. Any other ideas? Wendy, what about commuters going into Portland?
I think most people just aren't aware of the CAT bus, because really that touch point of Gateway is pretty narrow for people. I think maybe, I think you guys, I know you guys already work with TriMet, maybe spreading the word a little bit through TriMet about how far you can actually go using public transportation. And it would be great if people could use their TriMet passes on CAT also. That would be a great like synergistic relationship. So, I mean, those are kind of like, I remember for a while, the bus, I actually lived near Lloyd Center, and the bus actually went all the way to Lloyd Center. And I love that fact. But it was like maybe 1 month out there, it was like, hey, I could actually just walk to the bus and catch it. And it went on the freeway from there. But maybe even having another touch point would be convenient for people. But I think Gateway's fantastic, because it really is such a great connector. But I just don't think people are that aware of it. And like I said, maybe a little bit of incentive of sharing the fees that we pay with TriMet.
I want to chime in just a little on that, because for a long time there was a van pool that left from here, and it all pretty much ended with the shutdown in March. And so I kind of have a mailing list for all that. I think some know, quite a few have retired in this time, but I think that there are people who have been finding other ways to get in, that reaching out to those, because yeah, there are a couple private van pools, and this one was one that was just sponsored through the car rental, and there were 20 some on the list, and since they worked off this, different days of the week, they were able to go in.
That's so if we were to provide you with whether you we'll follow up with an email asking if you want hard copies of anything, or if you can just forward on information about the survey. That's going to make this very helpful for us, and again through your networks. So Ivy, I guarantee you will hear from me. And we spoke with your principal not that long ago. So that would be really helpful. Jody, do you have something?
Yeah, so what Beth was mentioning about those van pools, like I used to do that back in '94 or something for a few years, but there's a whole bunch of them. That would be a really, the Portland commuters would be a really good connection to
Mhm.
just get their feedback. Because if we could get those folks riding transit instead, that'd be a big deal. Yeah, one of the other thoughts I had when I was reading that, so there's a big, I got the idea that there was a large Hispanic community north of Cascade in Hood River. Is that true?
Patty, you've got the demographic map there. You're on mute.
Sorry, there is, it is a higher percentage of Hispanics in that portion of Hood River. That's correct. So there and in near the Seaver Crop area, both higher percentage of Hispanic communities.
I was wondering if there was something that you could, some sort of little events that could happen, like on the ground where you were doing surveys. It would have to be when the weather was decent.
Right.
But
Mhm.
like target those communities for surveys, you know?
Yeah, it's a good one. There are Hood River Crossing, and then there's the mobile home park on Cascade Avenue. Both of those, I think, would not only get a low income, but potentially also minority communities.
Mhm.
As well.
Yeah, like, it could be tacos and whatever, like a little bit of food, and come fill out our survey. We're interested to find out if we can help you with your transportation needs, kind of thing. Small, simple things that you would do.
Yep. Yeah. Teresa, you have any ideas for outreach?
Yes, I'm thinking outreach for grocery stores. If you're wanting to do like a tabletop thing where, and then you're mentioning about the iPads, I'm thinking, if we want to look at it locally, and for people that are doing the day-to-day stuff, is maybe going into targeting grocery stores, asking them something quick. And that includes, if we're looking at also centering into the Latinx community, I would also make sure that you have somebody there bilingual. And then also consider Mercado Guadalajara or Juanitas, especially because, those parking lots are a little bit smaller or something like that. So it would be easy, especially if they saw a bus coming in and, taking a family full of groceries, and they're like, oh, okay, it's not for seniors and it's for other people. So something like that is what I would be considering.
Great, that's excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, and then for the school communities too, I probably also do something with the middle school, especially with so many kids doing sports activities. And sometimes, even though you're not talking to the actual adults that are actually going to be putting the kids on the bus, the kids can take the information home and say, hey, my friend rides the bus here, or I missed the bus going to school and my parents have already gone to work. How do I get to school? So, having that idea of having the bus being able to take them.
That's great. Any other ideas right now? I'm a little cautious about calling on people just out of the blue right now, because I know we're getting close on time. So just to take advantage of any additional thoughts, and you can also send us thoughts afterwards. Beth, it looks like you're unmuted.
Yeah, I was just going to kind of go back to that commute, because the first bus in the morning leaves at the CAT terminal before the route starts. So you have to kind of catch a ride from somebody to get down to CAT to catch that first bus. And so I don't know if that's, a problem, but I just asked for a ride. And I'm saving people other drive, I have had to ask for rides places, and it's been a good practice to ask, but it makes you feel a little less independent. And
yeah, that's a first last mile situation and then the timing of it. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Could I just ask how many people from the CAC have taken the survey? Okay, we got Jody, Ivy, Laura. All right, Wendy, thank you. If you haven't, you'll get a very good idea of what we're going to be asking you to share with folks. It doesn't take long, and it just provides a lot of invaluable information that you will be reviewing at the next meeting, or you'll get a sampling of it at the next meeting. Patty, can you go to the next slide, please?
This is
All right.
White Buffalo Calf.
Oh, yes.
I just
Hi.
had a few quick ones. High school, colleges, she said middle school, high school, colleges, and then the airport. And then if you were to invest in some signage or benches or something that was to draw attention to the bus stop that had information on how to use it, I think really you need to make it all way more visible so people can't miss the fact that we have this amazing bus system toting people around. That's all. Thanks.
Great. That's great. And right now we are just working on this survey. We are partnering with Hood River Community College, and we've met with the school district superintendent and principals for at the high school. We have not reached out to the middle school, but our hope is that we will be working through the school district's communication network so we can reach more people. But the idea of benches actually where people are paused and they're able to have a higher visual. That's been another thing that comes up. A lot of people don't know about CAT, and that also was echoed at the Columbia Gorge Health Council. So we're partnering. If you have other ideas for presentations, for survey promotion, events, and community meetings, please share our way. We have the resources and we have the time, and we definitely have the energy right now. The community survey, you'll see it. Tomorrow, we will be sending you information to forward on to folks about the community survey. And then again, I said on board, Kat will be writing some of the buses and asking people for it, and then intercept surveys of people maybe walking by a CAT bus or at a community event. And then again, the partner organizations that we're trying to reach out. Patty, would you go to the next one, please?
Sure. I was just going to say also, if anybody on the committee is part of a larger group and would like us to do a presentation, either one of us from CAT are happy to go out, even give a little presentation about where we've been and where we're going, and then ask people to take out the survey. So if you have something like that and you think we can get on a committee or a meeting that you are passionate about, we'd love to be there with you.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, before we move on to the next, so one idea is to, if we wanted to, or if it would be possible, when you are doing out there the surveys with the community reach, is if you could hand out like a pass for the day to somebody so they could try it, and then maybe hand one to their friend or something, like that way they can kind of get just like go out and ride the bus for one day and test it out.
That's a great idea. We can give out a couple of tokens. That would be easily doable.
Yeah, and then it's a nice incentive for filling out the survey.
Yes, yeah. And we do have a incentive plan that we'll be working with One Community Health with, and as I said, the next door and possibly the school district. So we're just shoring a couple of those details up. I just want to give you a quick overview of the next meetings, what to expect.
Well, I was also just mention White Buffalo Cap. I know that you have some connections to the business community in Hood River, and we've had somewhat of a hard time getting a hold of the business association, Downtown Business Association. So if you know who's in charge of that right now, or how we can get a hold of that or get surveys out to the businesses, we would love for information on that.
Yeah, I can't say I do, but I don't think it'd be very difficult to find out.
Okay.
Right. We'll be visiting with you again at the end of April to give an overview of where we've been and what we've collected and what we're hearing. And then again, in summer, you'll have the opportunity to see the TMP strategies, the options, and the land use report. A lot of great ideas were already shared right here. And then again, in fall will be the draft TMP, where you will be asked to make a formal recommendation to the CAT board. Patty, anything else about those upcoming meetings?
No, so we think that meeting number 2 is going to be really important, and then we're also going to ask you then at that point if we'll give you the breakdown of who's been surveyed and who we haven't been very good at, and then we'll want additional ideas about how to get those surveys completed. Our really goal, we've had a hard time. Our neighbors have had a hard time engaging folks in some of the discussion, and we feel like we can't really create a great plan without great community input. So
yeah, that's what makes sustainable outcomes, to be honest, that a plan that meets the community's desires, needs, and from there, the next community advisory committee in however many years gets to reflect back on what a great process this was. So I think that is our last slide, Patty, isn't it? Could we stop sharing so we can see everyone's faces?
Yeah, hold on. I always forget how to do that. So. Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. Oh, hold on. I gotta move that. Sorry. I'm technically challenged. There we are.
So thank you all. Are there any final questions or comments? I hope it was a valuable 90 minutes. Any additional feedback? I wish we had cookies and flowers, but.
Yeah. I do have a question. You had mentioned a number of places you've spoken to. I'm wondering about the adult center, things that might go into Meals on Wheels meals, or reaching out through the store, the secondhand store.
Great ideas. Wow, I hadn't even really thought about that. We could send written surveys with Meals on Wheels, and maybe they can pick them up anytime. Yeah, really good idea.
Excellent. That's wonderful. If any other thoughts or comments come in, or you're thinking about it, just text. You have Tia's contact information, Patty's, and then you'll tomorrow we'll send you just some information that you can forward on as well. Patty, did I just talk over you?
Oh no, I'm sorry. I was just thinking in terms of the adult center, it's been relatively closed since COVID, so we're hopeful that it is able to start back up sometime soon too. So if it does, we'll definitely be there. But we've been working with the manager there to get into the newsletter, so we're hopeful that can happen.
Thank you all. What a pleasure to meet your faces and boxes. I really appreciate it. And hopefully, I mean, they're like, we can hope, but maybe in October, we can actually all be in the same room. Wouldn't that be a nice celebration? Thank you again. A lovely evening to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
All the best. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Yeah, really good.
Bye-bye. Have you stopped recording now?
Oh, I have not. Let me think.
Amy, you stay for the whole thing.